Welcome to the Retreat Leaders Podcast, your sanctuary with retreat experts, where we spill the tea on retreat success. Here we dive into craft and transformational guest experiences, talk about how to avoid pitfalls, and unlock marketing secrets. Whether you're a seasoned guru or a budding enthusiast, we've got the inside scoop for you. Join us as we learn how to flourish in this magical world of retreats. Hey guys, welcome back to the Retreat Leaders Podcast. It's Shannon, and I'm super excited to have a guest today that is another fellow France retreat member. I met her in France and fell in love with her and her energy. And I'm super excited to have her on the show because she's going to be super vulnerable with us, y'all, and share with us something that a lot of retreat leaders hesitate to share about, or they just don't even want to talk about it sometimes, or they make it sound different than it was. And that is learning through our first retreat and how we would want to do it maybe differently. And just, we're going to go dig right into it. So welcome, Misty, to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to see your face again. It's not the same as France, but I am glad to see your face. Before we get started into this topic, just tell us a little bit about who you are and, give us a little bit of a taste of what makes Misty Misty.
Yeah, so my name is Misty Chambers. I live in Houston, Texas, and have a brick and mortar Pilates studio there. I have been in the movement industry most of my life. Started off teaching dance and then got into yoga and Pilates. And along the way, I've done interior design and now retreats. So I've kind of had a long little detour of things that have gotten to me where I am now. And so yeah, it's a little bit about me.
I think all of us have that to some degree. If I talked about all the different hats that I've worn until I got to this space. And it's funny because all the hats I have worn help me in the space I am in today. And I think that just is kind of how it is. So Misty, you just recently had your very first retreat. You hosted your very first retreat. You were actually, when you left us in France, you were headed to host your retreat.
And exactly.
Yeah, through that process, we kind of you were keeping us all in the loop during this retreat on Voxer. And my heart was like, oh, my poor Misty, because I feel like the universe was showing you like, all the things that could possibly make you cranky about hosting retreats.
It was definitely a learning experience.
Yes, but part of what we're going to talk about is a lot of times retreat leaders think that their first retreat is like going to be that like this is it. This is exactly how it's going to be. I'm so excited. It was, there might have been one or two things, but this is it. And it's like that's not always the case. As a matter of fact, I would say more often than not, after you host your first retreat, you're like, first of all, do I even want to keep doing this? Second of all, how can I, change all these different things? And so anyway, Misty, let's just start off with maybe your very first thing that you were like, okay, this is what happened and this is what I plan to do differently in the future.
Sure. And to feed off of what you said a second ago, I don't know if you remember in the Boxer chat, after the retreat, I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. I don't know if I want to host another retreat because I had such a challenging time with this one. And I think one of the things that made it so difficult is that one of my guests was ill, and she was very challenging to deal with because she did not feel good. She was not nice to me. She wasn't nice to our tour guide. We stayed at a hotel. She was not nice to the hotel staff, and it just made the energy very low and like we were walking on eggshells. And one of the first things in dealing with that, I would say that I've learned is that I don't want to stay at the same place like I did. We were staying at the same hotel. I, in fact, was just 2 doors down from this woman, and I would want to hole up in my room when we were not doing anything because I didn't want to, I needed some downtime to myself. And so one lesson learned is that I think I would stay either at another hotel or make sure that I was in a room in a different part of the hotel if you're doing a retreat venue, staying off site,
Hmm.
just to give yourself a little bit of decompression time. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
I love this. Before we keep digging in, I realized we didn't even really share kind of what your retreats entail. And so you're Misty, you focus primarily on travel and culture experiences. And I remember when you and I talked, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is my jam." Like it's not a travel guide. It's like a travel guide on steroids, right? I don't even like using the word travel guide. It's an experience that you're providing, where it's got all elements of the retreat, what would be considered a retreat. It just doesn't have maybe a retreat transformation at the end so much as an immersion in this really cool place, space, and so anyway, so it includes, lots of different aspects of it, the excursions and the exploring and the meals and conversations, but it's just, it's a travel and culture immersion. So I wanted to clarify that so that way people are like, well, what were you doing in a hotel? Because not everybody does retreats in hotels. Some people do. Um, and I also love that you said, because this is something that I talk about all the time when it comes to hosting retreats, is retreat leaders have to have a separate space. At minimum, a completely separate room, right? Because I've seen retreat leaders where they're sharing rooms and co-shared spaces like with their retreat guests, and I just do not think that's a good idea. So at minimum, you have to have a separate room. Like here on the ranch, it's a whole separate building at the back of the property. It's the retreat leader's apartment. They have their own little kitchenette, even. Like it's just a space where they can kind of regroup, reset, retreat themselves so that way they can show up as their best self. So I'm really glad that you said that. And then there are retreat leaders like Erin, who we met each other through, where she even stays off site. So she might be a few houses down from the house or the venue that she's using, or whatever may be the case. So she can completely decompress. And she's got someone on point like Matt, which I think Matt was her retreat coordinator, which I think was one of the points that you were going to make too, Misty, is having a retreat coordinator, right?
Yes, again, because I had a guest that was ill, I was having to manage her, like finding a doctor. Her husband also came. They wanted an extra room so they didn't have to sleep in the same room since she was sick. So just navigating all these different things that were unexpected. We also had to pivot the activities that we were doing. Now,
Hmm.
I did have a tour guide that I had for 3 days during the retreat. She was local there and she was fantastic and did help with the pivoting of the activities and stuff. But it would have been helpful had I
Hmm.
had some like Daisha Donzi or Matt Quinones, who I hope I said his name correctly,
It sounded right.
who who does this retreat coordination that can be your point of contact, who can handle all those things so that you can be fully present for your other guests and not take time away trying to juggle all these pivots.
Hey, retreat leaders, pause that retreat planning for just a second because I've got something you do not want to miss. I'm headed to London this October to host a live event that's all about teaching you how to host a retreat that's not just transformational, but actually profitable. Imagine sipping tea or champagne with other like minded leaders while mapping out your next sold out retreat. It's happening at the gorgeous Waldorf Hilton in London. I'm spilling all the secrets from pricing to planning, marketing to mindset, and you'll walk away with a strategy you can actually use. No fluff, no BS, just results. So head to retreatmastermindtraining.com and come join me across the pond. I'm glad. Yes, this is so important. I had Daisha on the show a few episodes ago. If you haven't listened to that episode, you got to dig into it. She's an incredible retreat coordinator. It is so critical that you have an on point person who takes all of these things on because, Misty, as you probably know and felt, every single time this person would come at you with some other thing they needed or whatever, it would just totally hit your nervous system and your whole body. And then to continue to try to hold space and stay light and joyful and excited about the experience is really hard. Where if you have a point person on site who is the one that is the first stop for everything that's needed, every issue that comes up, everything that's needed, that's their first stop. And then if they can't handle something, then yeah, they can come to you and say, "Hey, Misty, I'm not clear where I should go with this direction." Fine, but there should be a first stop person. So thank you for bringing that up because I think that that's so underutilized, underrated, not talked about enough. And so, yes, thank you. So lesson one was, you know, staying away from your guests, having your own space to retreat to and, decompress and just reset. And then lesson number two is having a retreat coordinator or assistant on site to help you. What other types of lessons did you learn?
So, um, since we were staying at a hotel and not at a retreat venue, I did not have a chef on site. So we were eating out at all of our meals at different restaurants. We had two meals that we did at the hotel. Most of the meals that we did were like the menus were the prefix menus. But on the occasions where they weren't, I found myself going over the allotted budget that I had had per person, while I tried to, we were in the Champagne region. So, of course, there was a lot of champagne being consumed. So I would try to order a bottle to help mitigate, the different amount of glasses that might be ordered, but I couldn't predict what people were going to order for their meals. And while I tried to look at the menus ahead of time and tried to guesstimate a good budget per person, I felt like every time that we went out to eat, I was blowing my budget a little bit. So I think having an agreement with the restaurant beforehand, having a preset menu, these are the things that you can choose from, would definitely be helpful. Or, allotting a budget, like if you're having the meal at a hotel, giving a certain amount of credit towards meals. Um, but
Yeah,
just going out to dinner and I was including all meals in the
yeah.
retreat, and maybe giving some free time for them to go to dinner on their own would also be helpful.
Hey, it's Shannon here. I'm just popping in really quickly to ask a big favor. Would you pause the show and go review it for us? Please. Reviews really help us to be able to get more guests and more experts on the show to help you transform your retreats. So if you wouldn't mind pausing and leaving us a review, that would mean everything. And if you're not already subscribed, do that too.
I love that option that they could have, a meal on their own in this cultural experience. I think that that would be a great option, but especially just having the preset, you know, just a preset. This is where you can order from, and if you want to order off of this, that's fine, but that'll be at your expense. Being super clear. But Misty, considering that you had never done this, I don't know that somebody would have thought of that because you did look at the menus and you guesstimated
Mhm.
and you were prepared as much as you could be until you experience it. And this is why I always say, like, you really won't know until you do. You know what I mean? Like we can plan and we can guess and we can do all the things, and that's good. That's a good start, but until you do it, like your first time doing it, that's when you'll see, like, oh, my budget was a little off here, or oh, I
Yeah.
didn't even think about this could happen. What would I do in the future? So again, this is just another thing that, you won't know everything until you do it. And even when you do it, Misty, there's still going to be times if you decide to do it again, there's going to be times where you're like, well, shit, I didn't think of that either, and that just happens over time as you start to accumulate these experiences and these just things that will come up and be able to plan for those things. So anyway, what else?
So my other lesson, which I have heard many times from Erin, and then also more recently, Dora Rankin, was not to just market your retreat, but to sell the retreat. And I think I did a great job putting all the beautiful marketing and all the wonderful things that we were going to be doing. And it got people to say, oh, wow, that sounds like a great experience. But that's all I was doing
Yeah.
was marketing. I did not ask for the sale, and that's very challenging for me. So definitely lesson learned, and I know that that's something that I need to work on and get more confident at doing. But people aren't just going to come because you put out pretty post and it looks amazing. So definitely ask for the sell, you know.
This is such a big one. Misty, this for retreat leaders who've been doing it for years and years, they're still not necessarily doing that part of it, which is why I'm so glad I also had Dora on the show to talk about the difference between marketing and selling. And if you are an entrepreneur, really, we're all selling, but especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're also a salesperson. Like this is part of
Hmm.
it. And you're right, marketing isn't selling. Marketing's attracting, but it's not selling. And so I'm so proud of you for talking about that. And in general, Misty, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing, your lessons, but also the fact that you were super, super like upfront saying, I don't know, if I want to do this again. Like that's a real thing. And maybe you just need some time to like release some of let's just be honest, trauma of it.
Right.
To release some of that trauma and then get reignited with your passion and your why and what it could look like and knowing that some of the quote unquote worst has already happened, right? I mean, really, it has. And so, because I don't want you to give up, because I want to come on one of
Oh.
your retreats. Like you're
Aw,
speaking my
thanks.
language when it comes to travel and cultural experiences. I just think that is it's something that's so needed and it's such a beautiful thing. And not to mention that your energy is absolutely perfect for it. So I wouldn't want you to give up,
Aw.
but I also would want you to do it with your whole heart. So I don't know. What are
Oh,
you
thank
thinking? Where are
you.
you at today?
So now that it has been a few weeks since my return from a very challenging time, um, and have given it some more thought, I do want to continue. And in fact, I do want this to be a cultural travel experience that will be unique and
Mm.
fun. And I'm already looking at planning my next one. I'm hoping that it will be in New York in December, little
Yay.
Christmas trip. So I'm in the process of hopefully trying to get that together. And I've got a few other ideas in mind for 2026. So we'll stay tuned for that. So I'm not giving up yet.
Good. Good. That makes me so, so happy. I really don't, and some people may just not want to stick around that long, but I really don't think you truly, truly know until your third one. And I know that sounds funny, like why the third one? Well, the first one, you're almost just like a deer in headlights. And no matter how much you work with Aaron, who's amazing, you work with Dora, who's amazing, like they gave you a good framework and they're continuing to do so. But they're not the one hosting, right? Your first one.
Hmm.
You are. And so
Hmm.
it's just like
Right.
that kind of deer in headlights first one. And then you were happened to be blessed with a lot of challenges in your first one. Right. So, but anyway, the first one's just like the deer in the headlights. The second one's like, okay, I'm getting traction. I figured out some things that I feel did not work. I've learned some lessons. And you're kind of like, okay, with this new mindset. But it's really like your third one that you're like, you've pretty much fine-tuned who you want to be, who you want to be there with you, what your message is, what the experience is going to feel like for you and your guests. Like it's really fine-tuned by your third one. And that's when you know, in my opinion, you're like, yes, this is what I want to do. Or you're like, nope, I want to be a guest on retreats instead instead of
Wow.
this. And so like I really don't feel like you know to your third one. So I'm really happy that you're going for it again. And if people want to find out about your retreats that are going to be coming up, how can they find you?
So they can find me on my website, which is breatheriveroaks.com/retreats. And I figure at this point it can only go up from here.
I agree, Misty. I
So,
agree. Listen, if we should have a whole show about all the things that we've learned. I hate saying the word wrong because it isn't wrong. It just is what it is. And it's just a learning experience. But I have had some doozies in my life, Misty, in my retreat life of guests that were in pain and lashing out, uh, physical issues of, altercations. I have had some things. And so let me just tell you that that's okay. Like it really is okay. It's part of the learning experience. And it makes us so much better at what we do. It makes us so much better at holding space. And it is so true. It can only go up from this one, Misty, because you did have quite a few challenges, but I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for keeping your head up through it all. You were texting us and you were super receptive. And honestly, at the end of the day, you have such a beautiful heart. So I'm really, really glad that you're going to continue doing this.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yes, I'm so excited. So all of her information will be in the show notes. Please go give Misty some love. Check out her retreats, but if anything, just give her some love and encouragement because we've all been there in our lives or careers where we're like, is this what I want to do? Am I in the right space? And so it just feels good to be supported and loved. So Misty, I'm so proud of you and I can't wait to see what you create.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Retreat Leaders Podcast. Learn more at www.theretreatranch.com. See you next time.